In Kazakhstan, the craft developed over the centuries, leaving a legacy of unique products of artisans, amazing wealth of artistic imagination, and the perfection of form. A respect for one's heritage, traditional cultural values, these are the main tasks of the current generation. The history of folk crafts is a record of creative research and the discoveries of folk artists. The art of the Kazakh people, their national traits and traditions, were formed and perfected for centuries. Folk art stores in itself a historical memory and national heritage. Masters of folk art have bit by bit collected and continue to collect the experience of previous generations, multiplying them and transferring their skills from one generation to the next. Embroidery is one of the most common types of folk crafts. Its origin is associated with the appearance of the first stitch made by ancient people. Over time, embroidery retained its role as a decoration. The products were decorated with ornaments or plot patterns with the help of threads, ribbons, and needles. The basis for embroidery was silk or linen fabrics. The pattern can be made with hair, silk, silver, or golden threads. Embroidered patterns and drawings of the master reflect the idea of the world around him, artistic preferences, and national originality. We've managed to get acquainted with this unique creative family, which is engaged in the ancient art of embroidery called kiste, which in Kazakh means embroidery. From immemorial time to the present day, Kazakhs have embroidered objects of everyday life: clothing, scarves, carpets, and bedspreads, as well as many more things. No less important is embroidery of today. It turns an ordinary thing into a work of art. Accurately following these national traditions of embroidering, called the biz-kiste, modern masters decorate the products of everyday use, such as bedspreads, gowns and skirts, white clothes and bags. In embroidery, ornaments depict geometric shapes, plants, and animals, as well as the sun and the moon. It is these that give us the products of recognition of the national Kazakh style. They demonstrate an extraordinary imagination and a sense of harmony. Today, hand embroidery has turned into an art form. The creative family has been engaged in crafts for more than 30 years. The head of the family, Muhammadjan Zinilkhan, is reviving the technique of the Kazakh national embroidery, business kiste. Artist who dreams of bringing ancient traditional art to a new, modern, professional level is very much in demand outside of Kazakhstan. A number of his works are kept in private collections in the USA, Germany, South Korea, Russia, and Mongolia. He has organized more than 20 solo exhibitions dedicated to the art of kiste. The master passes on his skills and talents to the younger generation, working as a teacher in the Almaty College of Decorative and Applied Arts. The amazing worlds are knitted into fabric by the master. This skillful, delicate work invites an involuntary admiration. Zinilhan uses national motifs and techniques in his work, but also comes up with something new. He introduces his vision and worldview. At the same time, he always delicately feels the stylistics and the harmony of his ancient ancestors. How are these unique paintings created, where the hook replaces the brushes and the multicolored threads replace oil paints? We were lucky to find out about this. First, the wizard prepares his frame. A base of 4 wooden bars is created. The frame allows you to uniformly stretch the entire surface of the fabric for subsequent embroidery. The working surface is rectangular. Like most paintings, it has a rectangular shape. Creating the very design for the tightening is an important point. Now that the frame is ready for the master, it stretches the canvas chosen for embroidery. The tightening and the even stretching allows an avoidance of distortion of the picture or the ornament during work. Fabric and embroidery does not crumple, and the risk of damage to the material also decreases. The material is laid flat and stretched to the prepared frame. On the reverse side, the fabric is fixed with glazing beads, and small carnations help to strengthen the whole structure. Care is required, and to avoid damaging the fabric, a folded piece of cloth is put under the fastening. Then, carefully with scissors, the master cuts the excess fabric. Now, Zinilhan produces a very responsible part of his work, the drawing of a picture on the fabric. Few people are engaged in the art of kiste. However, according to the master, the number of those who have shown interest in it is growing. But in order to raise the kiste to a professional level, you need to master the theory of fine art. On the sheet of paper, the master draws a sketch of future paintings. Any work requires dedication, but this is not just work. This is a touch of mastery. Where is the source of inspiration, and who dictates these magical scenes of the painting? The master told us that, first of all, this is his imagination. In the scenes of picturesque paintings, patrimonial signs, elements of petroglyphs, totemic animals. Here we can see heroes and horsemen, women with babies, animal and hunter, as well as abstract symbols and figures originating from the ancient belief systems of our ancestors. Since ancient times, the masters have depicted everything that they've seen around them. Rivers, mountains, flowers and birds, as well as animals. They are not always naturalistic. Sometimes the images can even be abstract. The painting is transferred to fabric using carbon paper, which the master carefully puts onto the canvas. The painting is then outlined in addition, so a clear contour can appear on the fabric. Zenilhan embarks on the selection of embroidery yarns, the choices of color schemes for the future painting. Of course, the color selection is very important. After all, the Kazakhs reflected in their embroidery those colors that surrounded them in everyday life: the yellow-green of the steppe, brown earth, ochre, clay, and red flowers. It gives recognition to the certain zest of decorative and applied arts of the Kazakh people, and it distinguishes them from other Turkic people. The threads that the master uses in his work are very strong and durable. The paint on them should not quickly fade. After all, the painting woven from yarn must remain for many years and be passed down from generation to generation. The master has perfected the kiste technique. He began to use not only threads of the same color, from which the monochrome ties of traditional embroidery were made, but he's begun to join threads of several colors, thus obtaining a three-colored polychrome stitch. Initially, the master was involved in tapestry, painting, sculpture, and Zenilhan searched for his own path. His wife, Gulzai, was engaged in embroidering traditional Tuskiniya wall carpets. Suddenly, the thought came to him, why not create paintings using this kiste technique? So he developed the Kazakh technique of crocheting and brought it up to the rank of high art, and was able to create a new direction. With the improvement of tools for embroidery, the art itself has developed, and new techniques were introduced. The possibilities of performing various drawings and ornaments were expanded. Since ancient times, craftsmen have used hooks made from bones, but over time the masters have replaced bone hooks with metal hooks. Embroidery crocheting is a very laborious and complex technique, requiring constant concentration. The Tambor technique of embroidery, which Zenilhan uses, is found in many people. However, each master chooses the method and specifics of the execution himself. The master starts painting the threads with a fringing. He seems to draw out the contour of the pattern and the ornaments using seams and stitches. So the cord tracing of the ornaments go into the relief drawing and the contours of the figures. The contour is embroidered using dark colors, and then light threads are superimposed onto the edges, and conversely, if the contour is embroidered with light threads, the master achieves a volume of the image and has greater expressiveness. In art, everyone has his or her own signature, the master told us, and there is also a style in choosing shades. For example, someone might like softer colors, while others might prefer brighter colors. The embroidery styles are also very different. Since this kind of art is practiced by so very few, it is impossible to see a variety of styles. Tambor embroidery is very laborious. It requires a lot of time and great skill. It was given its name because of a special hoop, with the help of which silk carpets and bedspreads were embroidered. The hoop looked like a huge drum, and it was called a tambor. In his work, Zenilhan uses several different variations of the patterned stitches. He changes it in thickness, density, and relief. Zenilhan believes that a person who came to the world of fine arts must leave his mark, adapting national values to the conditions of the present, and should be in constant creative search. In addition to talent, this kind of art requires diligence. After all, the master spends a few weeks creating a small canvas. Creating a large picture sometimes even can take several years. So with each stitch, a unique work is created, a new kind of fine art. The embroidery covers not only a pattern, but also the background of the canvas. In his compositions, Zeynel-Khan sometimes used an applique and cord ligature, which makes the image more voluminous. First of all, the artist carefully studies the features of the traditional Kazakh drawings and ornaments. The paintings of the master are full of plant ornaments in the form of shoots of plants, various flowers, intertwined leaves, and zoomorphic motifs, bearing in themselves the symbolism inherited from our ancestors. The image of the leopard as a totemic animal of ancestors, strong, bold, and regal. A horse and a nomad are one inseparable entity. But still, the key place in the picture is occupied by a person, a dashing rider, or an akin, immersed in his music, or a woman lulling her child. Some pictures give energy and strength, and it seems that one can hear the whistling and trampling of hooves while looking at them, while others, peace and tranquility. The artist can surprisingly combine in his paintings historical motifs and ornaments with modern abstraction. It seems that the painting is poured one into the other. When the picture is ready, Zeynel-Khan picks up an appropriate frame for it, an artistic frame. As a rule, it is made of wood. The master usually chooses a simple form for the frame, but sometimes with complex decorative elements. The main thing is that this frame should complement and emphasize the picture. A new bold look, hard work, artistic gifts, and subtle tastes distinguish Zeynel-Khan's work from the others. With a growing sense of admiration, we peer at the pictures that hang on the walls of the small workshop. These paintings are created with the help of a hook and colored threads, a stitch after stitch. It turns out that with a small hook for embroidery, it is possible to create works that are equivalent to the works of any kind of art. Zeynel-Khan considers the revival of the embroidery technology business to be an important task of his life. His family also thinks the same way. After all, his wife, Gulzai, also embroiders in the traditional style of kiste. She creates various pieces of clothing, dresses, ruffled skirts, also known as beldemshir, and dressing gowns. And his daughter, who has inherited the artistic talent from her parents, creates her own paintings, also using the kiste techniques. But her images are made in a modern style, with abstraction and geometric shapes prevailing. We can say now confidently that in this time, Kazakh traditional applied art has grown from a form of folk craft and reached a new level of artistic creativity. Beautiful art forms have no equal, and there are many facets, undiscovered possibilities within them. The task of our generation is not to lose kiste. After all, this art is a guarantee of the preservation of national characteristics and traditions. Once upon a time, almost in every village, there were masters who skillfully owned the traditional Kazakh crafts. Today, these traditions are almost completely lost. The crafts have died with their masters, and crafts are no longer passed down to anyone. But keeping the craft is important. Why is that? Perhaps the modern world has everything, but only by inheriting the skills and abilities of our ancestors can we become ourselves and preserve our history and identity. No wonder the Kazakh people have composed so many sayings glorifying work and crafts. One of these is that the hands of the master serve the nation. The wisdom of the people passed from century to century and from mouth to mouth. We will talk about one such unique master in our next program.